Welcome to the Data Validation Guide. In this guide, we're going to look at presence checks, range checks, type checks, lookup tables, and also format or picture checks. Let's take a look. Again, I've located my files in an easy to find place, and I'm going to use the prison database as we did before from Access. So I'm going to open up Access. And I'm going to open my file, which is located on the desktop. And I'm going to go into my table. Well, first of all, we're going to look at a presence check. I've got in this particular table some given ID numbers, some first names, last names, heights, crimes, release dates, and if they're behaving or not. I might have all of that information required. But actually, I might choose that some information has to be there, whilst others is useful, but I don't mind if it is there or not. And in this example, let's imagine that any fields could have any information entered if it was available, apart from the crime, and the crime must be entered. There must be a required entry point. Well, at the moment, that's not the case. So if I go to my form and I go to my very end point and create a new entry, I could put in here new person 1, and new person 1, when updated, has only got the name in. Nothing else has been inputted. Well, let's take a look if we put the requirement on. I'm going to select the crime field, and I'm going to go to the field tool. I'm going to check that it is required. At this point, if I now go back to my form and add a second new person and try and click on to add someone new, I'll be given a warning. I must enter a value in the table 1 crime field. So coming out of that, having not entered it, it won't allow me to put an input in. And so this is how we can very simply ensure that a field has some kind of input. It's a presence check. Now we can also look at a range check. Let me create a new field. I'm going to add a new field for gender, in which case I want to know if the criminal was a male or a female. At the moment, I can enter male, female, but actually, because I've put no range check, I can in fact put any letters or numbers that I want. Well, let's now have a look at how we can specifically set that up so only a few options can be inputted. I'm going to select my design view, and I'm going to look at my new input of gender. I'm going to create a validation rule. I'm going to say that I can either have an M for male or an F for female. I've put the letters that I want to be allowed in speech bubbles. I could do another or, and I could put any word in there, in fact. I might put the word, for example, cheese. Now going back to my input, now going back to our gender field, let's have a look at what that's caused. The letter M is absolutely fine. The letter F is absolutely fine. And in fact, the word cheese is absolutely fine. But any other input will give me a warning saying I have not selected the correct input point. So I've now got myself a range check. And so I can delete this out. Now finally, we might look at a type check. Again, I'm going to add a new field, and I'm going to call this age. And just as before, I can enter anything that I think is appropriate. But that could be numbers or letters. What I want to do is actually only allow numbers to be inputted. So again, I can go to my design view. I can find my age field that I've just created. And rather than having it as short text, I want to specify that only a number is allowed. And so when I go back, I'll now be at a point where numbers are absolutely fine, but anything else gives me a warning. And so that is how I can then do a type check. I'm going to delete these new fields that we've added and take a quick look at how we can produce a lookup table. Let's say, for example, we wanted to find out what day of the week the criminal was arrested. Well, to do that, we can add a new field and we can use the lookup and relationship option. And I'm going to type the values that I'll allow. So I'm going to have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and finally Sunday. Pressing next and finish, I'm now going to change the name to day of week. When I go into this, at this point, I get a drop-down menu and I can choose any of the given days of the week that a particular person was arrested upon. And so that's how I can use a lookup table to make the choices very simple. Now finally, we're going to have a very quick look at a format or picture check. They're referred to as sometimes either or. So I'm going to create a new field. Say I wanted to have a prisoner number. I might create a new field called number. And at this point, as previously, I could enter any number of digits. However, I might actually require the number to only ever contain 4 digits. So how do we do this? Well, we can go to our design view and we can check on our prison number and we can produce a validation rule. Here, I'm going to type the words is null or like, and then I'm going to add some hashtags, and I'm going to add 4 of them. This is asking that either the entry is blank, is null, or it can contain 4 numbers, and no more than. The hashtag represents the number. If I wanted a character, I'd use the question mark. Now going back to my datasheet view, I'll notice that I can enter 4 numbers, but if I try to enter 5, it will give me a warning. It will only allow me to enter on my format or picture check 4 specific numbers. And that brings us to a close for our validation check. I hope you found the guide useful. Good luck with your future projects.